Hey gang, let's try something new today. I want to walk you through the process of a new athlete who just is starting out with triathlon, who wants to develop towards an Ironman. He's onboarding with us, and I tell you our thought process and how we apply our knowledge to bring him to his goal. So let's get started. So he's a beginner athlete. He's in his first year in the sport. He just started training a few months ago. He got a bike. He got all the material stuff. He's like fully invested. He's 36 years old. He lives in Tucson, Arizona. That tells us his training environment is pretty solid year round. He has really good facilities, pool, masters groups, all that cool stuff that he doesn't even know yet. He also has a 9 to 5 job, which definitely will restrict the way he's able to work out. Summertime in Tucson is really hot, so probably we'll do a lot of morning workouts, and then later afternoon workouts might be tricky too, might be more on the trainer depending on the time of the year. And the longest sessions will definitely be more on the weekend. So he's also married and has 2 kids at the age of 5 and 7. So that tells us it's going to be a bit tricky with school, etc. So there's going to be some planning involved into that situation. He has a history as a football player. He played in college as a tight end. That tells us that he has a lot of fast twitch fibers and not a lot of potentially. We don't know. We have to test that. But that's a huge potential downside to his development towards long distance triathlon because he will be less efficient on the longer distances. So his main goal, he wants to eventually finish an Ironman at the age of 40. So that gives us 4 years to develop him towards being an ideal Ironman athlete or to finish it and enjoy the process. Okay, so what do we look at here to make sure that he, first of all, can enjoy the Ironman down the road, will have fun during his first triathlon, and will have fun in the process, don't get injured, and don't get divorced, or his kids won't have any regrets down the road that his dad wasn't there, or their dad wasn't there. Okay, so there's a lot of planning involved in terms of time management here. And the first thing I always do with an athlete is talk about expectations. So you have this dream of finishing Ironman, but what does that really mean? Like, you can't grasp the amount of time that it actually takes to train for this. So you need help from the outside. So we will outlay a plan and say, hey, listen, you definitely need like probably on average at least 10 hours per week for your training in the first years. And if you progress more towards the Ironman, well, ideally be more towards 15 hours if you want to have fun at that race, especially with your history that you're a bit less efficient, probably have more fast twitch fibers. We want to develop those into slow twitch fibers, which takes a lot amount of time in the sport, with training, with low intensity training. So those hours on the bike and on the run and in the water, they just need time, and it takes time. So patience is a huge factor. Expectations and patience go hand in hand here. So goal setting would be the next thing. I would recommend for that athlete to definitely sign up for some races, look for some local, either short sprint distances or sprint distances to get some race experience. That's really important in the beginning without expectations, just to go through the motions of the sport, be like, hey, okay, this is what a swim feels like, this is going bike, this is going run. But this is already like down the road, right? So before that, in training, we want to make sure that the technique is on point. A lot of these athletes in the beginning, they're really ambitious, and like this guy already bought all the equipment, so he's like really into it. We gotta hold them back a bit so they don't get injured or do anything that they would regret down the road. So we want to look at the technique first, and we want to make sure that his running technique is solid, which it should be as a former fast running guy, as a tight end. Usually we see that with people who had a fast running style, like a tight end who's like sprinting a lot, that the running style at a high speed is relatively good because they're used to the momentum, but they're not really good at slow running, which we need for triathlon and the endurance sports. So we really want to make sure that his running style at slow paces is good as well, which usually involves looking at the cadence, which is totally different from this high-speed running. So that's a big factor. Bike position, we want to make sure that the athlete doesn't hurt himself sitting on a bike, which can easily happen. And the most important thing is really swimming. In this case, I don't know if he's a good swimmer or not, but I assume he's not. So we really have to have a local coach who looks on the swim technique. Maybe even join a master group, which really helps. Like in the group setting, this is a team sport athlete, so he's used to a group setting. I think that would be a big plus for him in his development process. Okay, so then we go to the next basic stuff, technique first. And then we want to make sure that he nails his nutrition. Why do I stress this in the beginning? Well, he's a tight end. He was slim and good, but he gained some weight over the years after college. So one of his comments that he dropped is that he's looking for some weight loss too, which is cool, which will actually happen automatically. But a lot of athletes who start out, they also restrict their calories way too much. And that leads to a lot of underfueling, and then actually they don't make the adaptation that they're looking for. So they just drag out the training process a lot by not eating enough. So we really want to make sure that that athlete is eating enough right from the beginning, that he's at least matching the calories that he's burning, that he's even there. That's really a big point. Another thing, obviously, having kids in a 9-to-5 job, the training time. When does he train? And we want to make sure that he doesn't fall into the trap of dragging out his evenings super long with training and then doesn't get adequate sleep in. Sleep is super, super important. So I want to stress that too from the beginning, especially with kids. Probably in the years before, when the kids were younger, he was a bit more sleep deprived and he's used to sleeping less, but actually with the more training load now, she should focus on sleeping a bit more. The hardest sessions, I would actually schedule that more for the mornings and probably more some easier stuff in the evening so it doesn't interfere with the sleep. I think that's important. Another thing with a really ambitious and former college athlete is the present bias. I have to talk about that with him, which means we got to make sure that he knows he plays the long game, that he doesn't want to achieve everything in the first year, like right now, I can push through everything. These college athletes, and especially football players, they're hard dogs, right? So they're used to push through pain, they're used to push through all the stuff, but that can lead to actually a bad development process in triathlon and endurance sports. So I really want to make sure and stress the mental mindset to play the longevity game right from the beginning. That's super, super important. And the earlier we can convince the athlete that that's the right way, the better. So I highly recommend that. Goes right into life balance. He has to make sure, obviously, that his wife is on board. Super, super important, but it sounded like his wife is super supportive. So I love that already. Another thing is zone discipline that goes hand in hand with the willpower and the pushing thing. Pushing through is nice, but an easy ride should be an easy ride. And it doesn't really help if I explain, you gotta be at this percentage of heart rate, or zone 2, zone 3. You have to go really basic in the beginning and be like, hey, the easy rides, you only want to breathe through your nose. Don't breathe through your mouth. Then you're in the right zone. You gotta really slowly develop them into realizing the zones. That comes down the road. I know, in the beginning, I would love to talk about metabolism and, oh God, your VLI max is way too high. You're inefficient. It just overwhelms the athletes and turns them off. So you want to learn to speak the lingo in the beginning, especially if it's a beginner athlete. Ease it down a bit and then stack it up down the road with more information and go deeper. I really recommend that, and it usually works very well. What I always do with my athletes in that that fits in this section here, I have a weekly scheduled call with them, and I want to make sure everything works. So I look at all the life stressors. I look, is everything okay with the family? Is the job going well? How does the training fit in? So we write the training plan around their life so it fits in and fits together and isn't working against each other. That's a super, super important thing. And I love to have an empathetic coaching style. I really care about my athletes. And with these conversations that we have on a weekly basis, we build this relationship. And the relationship between the coach and the athlete gets stronger as the athlete gets stronger and develops in the sport too. And that's actually what I really love about this job, seeing the development together. It's just really awesome. Okay, give yourself time and have fun. That's another important thing. And the last thing I wrote down was like join a master's group or local group, which I also think is super important. So your first triathlon, understanding the basics is actually the most important thing. A lot of people want to skip over and buy a power meter, do this, that. I think that's way too much. Focus on good sleep, on don't overdo it in training, follow the plan, and eat well, sleep well, and you're good. Okay? If you master that, then we can progress on. Do your first race, enjoy it, have fun, give the high fives, and then on to the next task. Okay, I'm gonna use this example athlete here for more stuff to explain in the next few videos. Thanks for watching. Leave a like or subscribe. Or if you have a question about your training, want me to analyze your training, just send me an email at info@konaendurance.com. Thanks, guys.